Good morning, boys and girls. I'm glad you're back again this morning. Today we're going to be talking more about Moses. Remember, we talked about him when he was a baby, and then last week when we talked, or week before last now, he had grown up and he had gone away, and then God talked to him in the middle of a burning bush. That's right. He appeared to him in the burning bush, and he said, I have a job for you, Moses. I want you to go to Egypt and get the children of Israel. Remember, that's all the people that Jacob, all of his sons, and all of their families. He said, they're being mistreated, they're treating them bad, and I've heard them praying to me and asking me to deliver them from the wicked Pharaoh. And so Moses said, God, I'm scared. I don't know how to do that. I'm not a very good speaker. And he said, I know, but I'm going to give you help. Remember? And he told him he would send his brother Aaron with him, and they would go to Egypt, and they would talk to the Pharaoh and ask him to let the people go. So that's where we're going to start this morning. Let's start reading the story, and we'll see what happens. Okay, this comes from the book of Exodus in the Old Testament. Moses and Aaron went to see Pharaoh. Our God has a message for you. You must let our people go. We can take them out of Egypt. Pharaoh laughed. I don't know this Hebrew God of yours. Why should I listen to him? Our God is great, Aaron said. Look at what he can do. And Aaron took his staff. Now the staff is something that the shepherds used to poke their sheep with and to herd their sheep with. And so he said, they had their wooden staff like this, and they said, take your staff. And so he took it and he threw it on the ground, and when he did, it became a snake, a wiggly snake. And it just looked terrible. And the old Pharaoh said, that's not a big deal. My magicians can do that. And so they did. They threw their staffs on the ground, and they became snakes too. But then Moses' snake ate up the other snakes, and so that meant that he was more powerful than they were. So that was one thing that got the Pharaoh's attention, and he thought, maybe I better listen to him. So let's see what happens next. Pharaoh did not believe in God's power. He would not let the Israelite slaves go. He even threatened to treat them worse than before. Right, so that old Pharaoh was bad. God said to Moses and Aaron, go back to Pharaoh, and this time Aaron told the king, you did not let our people go. Now God will turn the water into blood in the river Nile. Now the river Nile ran through their country, and it was where they got their water to drink. And this is like their staff, and he stuck his staff into the water, and it began to turn red. It turned into blood. Can you see it turning red? It's kind of turning red, isn't it? And all of the water in all of the Nile turned into blood. Would you want to drink blood? No, you wouldn't want to drink blood, would you? Well, they didn't either, and they couldn't use the water because it was blood. And Pharaoh said, oh, we don't like this. Stop. We don't like this. Turn it back. Fix that. And they said, okay, if you'll let our people go. And he said, okay, I'll let them go if you'll fix it. Well, they fixed it. But then Pharaoh said, no, I'm not going to let them go. They're my slaves and I need them. Pharaoh just turned away and went back to his palace. He had seen his magicians do some tricks kind of like that too. But God was not done with him. So he told Moses and Aaron to go back again. And this time say to Pharaoh, because you didn't let my people go, I'm going to put a plague on the ground. And I'm going to send frogs. Frogs. Now, I like frogs, but I wouldn't want millions of frogs, would you? He sent millions of frogs, and they were everywhere. And they were in his hair, and they were in his food. They were everywhere. They were all over him. Frogs were everywhere. They were in the water. They were in their bed. They were on the table in their plates when they started to eat. The frogs were everywhere. And when you come to class on Wednesday night, you'll get to play with these frogs and see how many frogs we had. But there were lots and lots of frogs, and they were everywhere. How would you like it if when you got in your bed it was full of frogs? I wouldn't like that, would you? And what if you started to eat and it was in your cereal, swimming around in your cereal bowl? We wouldn't like that, would we? Pharaoh didn't like it either. And he said, oh, help me get this and do something. And then the frogs kind of started dying and they started smelling bad. And he said, okay, get the frogs out of here and I'll let the people go. So Moses got the frogs out and God sent the frogs away. And then the old Pharaoh said, no, I'm not going to let them go. He was really mean, wasn't he? God said, I'm going to send more plagues. He sent 8 more plagues. The first plague was he turned the water into blood, and all the fish died, and people didn't have the water to drink, so they didn't like that plague. That was number 1. Number 2, where the frogs came and went all over everything they had. They didn't like that either, did they? The next one, the third plague, was lice. That's bugs, just all kinds of bugs. And I've got all kinds of bugs here. I'll show you when you come tonight to class. But there's all kinds of bugs, and he said there's bugs all over everything, and they didn't like it. They didn't like all those bugs, and they were in their hair, and they were in their eyes, and they were in their food. They were everywhere, and it was bad. Each time Pharaoh promised to let the people go, but then when the plague would go away, he would change his mind. The next plague was flies. Ooh, I don't like flies. Usually when you have a picnic, the flies come and they're all over your food and they're all over everything, and they didn't like that either. Pharaoh hated that. So the flies were there, and he had said, please get rid of the flies. So Moses did get rid of the flies, but then Pharaoh and Moses would say, let my people go. And he would say, no, I don't think I will. And he didn't let them go. So it just got worse and worse and worse. And finally, one of the other plagues, the 5th plague, was the cows and the sheep and the animals. All the animals began to die because it was a plague that killed all their animals. Well, they had to have animals to eat, and they had to have animals for all kinds of things, and they didn't have any animals anymore because they were all dying because of the plague. This really got Pharaoh's attention, and he said, all right, I'll let the people go. And so every time they got ready to go, he would back out, and he would say, no, you can't go. You have to stay here and work with me, for me. All right, we're going to stop right there for those 5 plagues right now. Let's see. We'll talk about the rest of them next time, okay? So let's go back over what happened. Aaron and Moses went to Egypt to see the Pharaoh, and they were going to get the children of Israel. Now, we say children of Israel, but they really weren't. They weren't children. There were some children, but there were grown-ups too. It was families, lots and lots of families. And they were there in Egypt, and they were being treated bad, and they were slaves, and they had to work with no money. They didn't pay them to work, and they beat them and mistreated them, and it made Moses mad, remember? And so he is there trying the Pharaoh to let the people go. But Pharaoh has a hard heart. He's a bad man, and he would not let the people go. And God just kept sending more and more bad things on him to try to get his attention, to try to make him do what he wanted him to do. But he was a stubborn old man, wasn't he? He was. And Moses and Aaron had trouble trying to get him to do what they wanted him to do. But we kept on and on, and we're going to talk about the other 5 plagues next time, and we'll see that finally, he will let the people go. We'll find out how that happens next time. Thank you for coming today.